So, dear respected Thai, dear Sangha, dear friends, let's relax into the present moment by enjoying our breath as we listen to 3 sounds of the bell. Hello everyone, good morning. Today is the 7th day of December in the year 2025, and we're in the Assembly of Stars Meditation Hall in the Lower Hamlet during our 3 months Rains Retreat. I discovered that December is a holy month. And if you will allow me to share with you what I discovered about December. Yesterday was the St. Nicholas Day, and he is the patron saint of sailors and children. He's known for his generosity and for protecting the sailors at sea, particularly the fishermen. And he is honored, I read, in countries such as Greece and Russia, where the sailors put lights on their ships. And also celebrated in the Western countries of the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, and even in France. So St. Nicholas he came before Santa Claus. Let's put it that way. He was the European version who came before Santa Claus. And tomorrow is Bodhi Day, or Rohatsu in Japan. And this is the day when Siddhartha Gautama Shakyamuni experienced enlightenment. So it's considered the Enlightenment Day of the Buddha in some countries. Japan, places in China, Korea, even in Vietnam and the Philippines, I read. In Plum Village, we celebrate Vesak, and that is considered the celebration of the birth of the Buddha. And also it's considered the celebration of the enlightenment and the parinirvana, the passing away of the Buddha. Yesterday was St. Nicholas Day. Tomorrow is the Bodhi Day. What is today? December 7th. Well, Thai gave us a way to say that today is today's day. And friends who were at the summer retreat a number of years ago, the children in all of the children's program had the opportunity to come up on the platform next to Thai, and the children, sisters and brothers, made a little wreath of beautiful flowers, and this crown of flowers, was placed on the head of the child, and the child was given the opportunity to feel he or she was important. And what did they say? They said, for example, "I am the king of Norway, and I declare today is today's day." And then all the parents of this child were so happy. And then a little girl was invited to come up, and she wore the wreath of beautiful spring flowers, and she came up and said, in their native language, of course, because they were young. Some of the children were 4, 5, 6 years old, and the parent would come up and translate. So, for example, a little girl would come up and say, "I am the Queen of Spain, and I declare today is today's day." And the mommy and daddy would be so happy to see their little girl, little boy, declaring they were king and queen for the day. It seems over the years this celebration for the children has not been continued, but I share it was one of my favorite moments of the summer retreat. And Thai created this moment for children, their parents, and all of us to be happy. All right, today is today's day. Tomorrow is Bodhi Day. On the 13th of December is Santa Lucia's Day. And for those of you who live in Sweden, Norway, Finland, and even in Italy, Sicily, I believe, the festival is celebrated with candlelight. And Saint Lucy was a saint who went into the prisons or the dark caverns where prisoners were kept with no light, and she brought them food. And the way she was able to make her way through this dark area, she wore a crown of candles. And in fact, I remember some time back, when Thai was here, that day was celebrated, and we had retreatants from, forget which Scandinavian country, but they came forward and chanted Santa Lucia song, and it was very beautiful. So that is not particularly a religious celebration, so to speak, but a deep spiritual celebration. And on the 14th of December is the beginning of Hanukkah. And this is the festival of lights where candles are lit every single night for 8 days. And this commemorates the history of the Jewish people, where there was a miracle. Only enough oil was left to light one candle. However, this small amount of oil lasted for 8 days. And so it has a deep meaning, and it celebrates the freedom of religion and freedom, I guess, yeah. And then on the 21st day of December, for the Muslims, it begins the 3 holy months of their preparation until Ramadan, the 1 month of fasting and spiritual prayer and practice, which will begin in March the 20th or 21st. And now we continue. The 24th of December, many of you may know already, is the Nativity, the birth of Jesus Christ. The 25th is Christmas Day. Yes, January 1st, we know, is the New Year's Day according to the solar calendar. And on February 17th is the Lunar New Year, Tet. And that is celebrated with a lot of joy and happiness. And it's also known as the Chinese New Year. There's something interesting that Thai said for the Western New Year. January 1st, it is said the old year ends and the new year begins. And then Thai said, nothing changes. There's no birth, no death of years, you know. You'll find that there's a continuation. But we like to think there's something we can begin anew. So in the true sense of our understanding, there's always a continuation and no absolute beginning, no absolute end. So it's a month, even up to 3 months of observances, of holiness, of love, of joy, of peace. And the preparations sometimes are immense. I just reflect on some of our experiences. And people come here because they don't want to necessarily experience these holidays as they are traditionally experienced outside of the monastery or practice center. And I asked myself if there could be an animal that would represent all the preparations for all of these holidays, for all of these observances. What animal would I choose to represent the preparation, the energy, the force, maybe the work, but we do this as mindful service, of course. What animal? And what appeared to me was a pack of wild horses galloping towards us. Maybe in Asia it would be a pack of elephants making their way. And this is wonderful that they come to help. And we know our practice helps us immensely during this period of celebration, of joy, of love and respect. We can have peace and calmness. And we learned last week that Thai gave us the awareness that we can experience fruits in our practice. There are 4 fruits of our practice. And we heard last week from Brother Phapsa that the first one was the practice of dwelling peacefully in the here and the now. Antu, dwelling calmly and peacefully. And the mindful breathing is probably the easiest way to begin to access the peace and calm of our body and mind. But it's not always easy, is it? The mind likes to wander to the future, wondering about what will happen if we're involved with preparations. Do we have enough people, enough whatever is needed to create the festival or the family dinner, whatever? We think of the future. Or the mind will slip back to the past. So the holidays have 2 aspects. Of course, the celebration and bringing up the seeds of joy, happiness, and peace, but there's the other aspect of the past. And perhaps the holiday seasons were not always happy. So memories of the past can emerge, can can manifest in our mind. And so we know that there are two aspects are possible for our experience. The happiness from the past, but also maybe some sadness and suffering from the past. So dwelling in the here and now is a way to anchor ourselves with what is beautiful and healing right here and now. We're here with the Sangha, and what is more wonderful and supportive and healing than having friends on the path? Kalyana Mitra, our spiritual friends. So whatever was in the past is updated with our experience in the present moment. So let us enjoy our opportunity to be here and now, even while our mind is going back and forth in different time zones or whatever. Thai wrote a wonderful poem to describe the mind. And maybe this would be applicable to this month of holiness and celebrations, when our mind may be very active and sort of jumping around. Thai wrote a poem, and he used the image of a frog to describe our mind. And I'd like to read this poem to you now. It's called Froglessness. So let's help the mind not be like a frog. So, froglessness. The first fruit of the practice, the first fruition of the practice, is the attainment of froglessness. When a frog is put on the center of a plate, she will jump out of the plate after just a few seconds. If you put the frog back again on the center of the plate, she will jump out again. You have so many plans. There is something you want to become. Therefore, you always want to make a leap forward. It is difficult to keep the frog still, the mind, on the center of the plate. I want to add a little parenthesis here. Once we heard Thai say, the reason the frog jumps off the plate is the frog doesn't want to be eaten. You know, there's a menu called Frog's Legs, and I think frogs know about that collectively, so they jump to safety. All right, but that's not in the poem, excuse me. All right, please excuse me for that, but I just wanted to add a commentary. You and I both have Buddha nature in us. This is encouraging. But you and I both have frog nature in us. That is why the first attainment of the practice, froglessness, is its name. So it's peaceful dwelling, helping our mind stay here and now, as well as our body, sitting down, relaxing, taking a moment just to pause. We stop, we calm ourselves, we rest, and then we can heal. So why don't we practice a little bit of this now while hearing the sound of the bell, and we can practice froglessness for the mind that loves to jump everywhere. The second fruit of the practice that Thai gave us is called arriving home. And the best way we can arrive home to ourselves is with every footstep. I wrote the very short gatha, I have arrived, I am home, in the here and the now. Da'ave, da'atoi. Okay? So we can think of these words with every step that we make in the language of your choice. Every step gives us a sense of arriving. And where are we? We realize we are on Mother Earth. We feel the solidity of Mother Earth under our feet. And the mindful walking is especially wonderful if we experience a strong emotion during these holy celebrations during the holy month of December or January, February, whatever. So we know that walking even for 5 minutes will help. I've discovered that 20 minutes for me is the sweet spot for helping me calm a strong emotion. But it doesn't have to be 20 minutes, or it could be longer. So recognizing I might feel a little irritation, I might begin to feel tears welling up, that's the time to help the body and mind together by embodying the practice. And we can do this very easily with the support of Mother Earth, always beneath our feet. And so this is a wonderful practice to always have ready. Your feet are always ready. They never say, wait a minute. I think the feet are always ready. It's just we have to help the mind, remind the feet, let's do some walking. Yeah. And during one summer, there were very young children with us. And Thai gave the children 2 simple ways to practice walking meditation with 2 words, really. It's for the French children. So with each step, he would say, well, just say this word, merci, merci. Another word he gave was oui, oui, thank you, yes. Or the other way, start with oui, oui, merci, merci. So any words will help. But it was so beautiful to see the children practicing this. And the meaning of that is for the children to be able to say yes and to thank their parents. Maybe say yes if they were at the terrible 2 age where the word was no, no, no. It's said that children, when they're 2 years old, they say no a lot. I don't know. But anyway, so they were given the words yes, oui, and merci, thank you. Another possibility for the children, but you know, we have the child in us, so we can use these words too. Another possibility is, we said to the children, imagine your 2 feet are little airplanes, and they're gonna land. Land. I have arrived. I have arrived. Airplanes sort of land like that, don't they? You know, the tires come down first, boom, and then the airplane jumps up, and then it lands again, and then we know, okay, we've arrived. So the feet, they arrive. My feet are little airplanes, they arrive, they come home. But they're not for takeoff, because the takeoff is opposite. So just arriving, the little feet arrive. There is a wonderful Japanese haiku poet. He's my favorite. He's the master of Zen haiku poetry. His name was Basho. And we're very fortunate to have in our Sangha now a member of the Japanese Sangha. And I asked her, I said, well, I'd like to mention Basho in terms of walking and arriving. And I offered the phrase that was translated that I found, and she was so kind to actually give an authentic translation and did the research and has offered this saying of Basho. He lived in the 17th century in Japan, and we might say he did some traveling, some journeying. I don't know too much about him, I'm sorry, but we have a resource with us. But I want to share this with you. I found it very beautiful. Okay. The months and days are travelers of eternity, and the passing years are also voyagers, those who drift their lives upon boats. And these are the boatsmen who ferry people across the river. You're also in Vietnam and other countries, Asian countries. Those who drift their lives upon boats or grow old leading horses by their reins. And these are the pack horse drivers who carried supplies and travelers and voyagers many distances. They live each day as a journey and make the journey itself their home. Their home and their peace. So the journey itself is home. And Tai said, every step we arrive home. And what I remembered, the journey itself is home from Basho. So we have learned more about Basho's poetic line. It was the expression of the Tang Dynasty poet Li Bai. And he said, heaven and earth are a temporary inn for all things, and time is a traveler through the ages. So we have some very beautiful ways of recognizing I have arrived, I am home, with every footstep. And our life is a journey, and the journey is full of surprises and happiness when we're practicing. And we know how to practice with whatever comes up. So, in realizing that December is a holy month, tomorrow is Bodhi Day in Japan and other countries, celebrating the Buddha's enlightenment, I asked myself, well, what were the fruits of the Buddha's practice? And many, of course. But what he offered us, he offered in his first Dharma talk, the turning of the wheel, he offered the teachings that are known as the Four Noble Paths. However, in the Chinese language, it's known as the Four Holy Paths, the Four Wonderful Paths. And so, please allow me to share about the Four Holy Paths of the Buddha's, the fruit of the Buddha's many years, 6 years of intense practice, his enlightenment, the Four Noble Truths, the Four Holy Truths, the Four Wonderful Truths, and the Eightfold Noble Path, the Holy Path of of wonderful right practices. So let's maybe have a look at those. And why not have a sound of the bell to help us continue to create the habit energy of stopping, relaxing, and breathing when we hear the sound of the bell. So now, dear friends, I will take the path down the stairs. And you may enjoy a pause if you want, a cup of tea or a cup of water while I'm navigating the stairs. Miriam, you can hold it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thanks. So has the pause been long enough? Truthfully, you can continue to enjoy your tea or whatever. I'll be writing some things on the board. I don't mind. But officially, for the monastics, we're not supposed to do that. We're not supposed to drink tea or water during a talk. But it's okay because I'm going to be writing on the board. How are you doing? It's a moment to practice patience while I continue to write. I know many of you are familiar with this, so just consider it a review, maybe so. So I'm almost done. So enjoy your tea. So friends, may I continue? Is that okay? So what the fruit of the Buddha's practice was the teachings on the middle way, of course, summarized by Thai when we say this is like this because that is like that. And it shows the interconnection, the interbeing of all things, the causality, right? And in addition, the Buddha offered such a wonderful path of practice for us. And it was the fruit of his life of searching and questioning, and it's his insight and how to have happiness. And even more, yes. And it seems very simple. But what I found out when I began my practice is I forgot. So I know I have to memorize. I have to know what are these right practices that will lead to the ending of suffering or create happiness. So Buddha discovered because he saw his life brought him many images of suffering. He experienced the suffering of his father as the king. He did not want to follow that path. So he wanted to find out, why is there suffering? Well, he discovered suffering has causes, but more than one cause. So there's because all compounded things are made of more than one element. So suffering, we look to find out what are the elements that are contributing to my suffering. And we may consider it could be the suffering of my parents, grandparents, the country, present moment. There's suffering in the world in the form of war, poverty, discrimination. So many causes of suffering, And if we want to end the suffering, we have to stop feeding the causes of the suffering. The Buddha said, everything needs food to survive. So we identified what is helping my suffering continue to get bigger and bigger and go on non-stop. So you go to a doctor when you're ill, the doctor will look for the causes. Well, it's usually exams, blood tests, x-ray, whatever. Find the cause. Yeah. All right, now, the Buddha discovered that there are certain right practices that will help remove the cause of the suffering because, well, for the reason that these practices have not been done correctly. Yeah. Another way of saying that, and if my suffering has been caused by my thinking, the self-talk, when I'm thinking about other people, or my speech, that's self-talk, or am I causing suffering in others with my speech or my actions? Am I in some way contributing to collective suffering by the way I earn my living? You see? The killing of animals, destroying the earth. So we look at these 8 very important areas to see what actually is, what influence are they having now on making me feel suffering or ill-being in myself or in others. Now, the Buddha said we need to have right thinking, right speech, and right action to not contribute to suffering. All right? Another way of saying that is when I speak kindly and gently to someone, then I am contributing to their happiness. So the practice of these 8 areas, the 8 right practices, when they're done with mindfulness and awareness, will be contributing to the ending of suffering. Yeah. Shall I continue? Is it clear? Maybe there's some questions about this. Thai, instead of the word suffering, Thai used the word ill-being, okay? Ill-being, ending of ill-being, to have happiness or well-being, right? Now, there's another way of writing this, which Thai, in fact, did, and that's how I can present it to you now. So, why don't we have another sound of the bell for another cup of tea to relax into the present moment. Okay, now we have happiness, right? We've practiced the 8 practices with mindfulness, and now there is happiness. Now, we know because of impermanence, everything can change, yes? But how to sustain the happiness? By giving the conditions to create happiness or help the happiness stay as long as possible. So, we have happiness. So there are causes and roots of happiness. Many, many. So we know right away that the 5 mindfulness trainings, the precepts, will secure the happiness and put an end of suffering. Aware of the suffering caused by, and the reasons are given, I make the vow to do something else and practice something according to the 8 right practices. Happiness is there in, I would say, the essence of Thay's teachings on how we can practice. For example, beginning anew, the flower watering, sharing appreciations of one another, watering your own flower instead of criticizing yourself, but appreciating the people in our lives and actually communicating this. So that is a way of creating happiness. Thay offered music and singing. Before we do walking meditation, we always sing. And these are the practice songs we sing. I have arrived, I have arrived, I am home, I am home. The songs and the music bring up and water the seeds of happiness. Because in the depth of our consciousness, we have all kinds of seeds. We have seeds of happiness and joy, peace, and also the seeds of suffering that have been planted and transmitted, as well as the happiness seeds were transmitted and planted. But the seeds of anger, of fear, anxiety, of despair, these seeds are also there in our consciousness, the alaya, the store consciousness. So Thay created so many practices for us in the Plum village tradition to water the seeds of goodness, of happiness, and to do selective watering. That means we will not water the seeds of suffering in another person by the way we speak to them or how we act. So this is selective watering, to diligently water the best seeds and to refrain from saying or doing things that will hurt others. Yeah. So happiness, many causes, many conditions for happiness. Tea meditation, walking meditation. That will be homework for all of us as we experience this holy month and start another 12 months of practice and happiness. Find out within yourself, how do I water seeds of happiness in myself and others? And just as important, how am I watering my own seeds of suffering with my own self-criticism, self-judgment, self-talk? You see? And how am I doing this to others? Because of interbeing, how we affect one another, it's so important to be aware of this with mindfulness. So our our practice is wonderful. Yeah. It's holy, it's noble, and it's wonderful. So we have happiness and the making of happiness with our practices that Thai has given us. Now, what happens if we're forgetful or we just don't know enough about doing these practices, mindfulness practices? What, if I still react with anger and have fights with my beloved ones, or I'm not concentrating very well when I'm driving the car, and then, whoa, an accident. What will happen if I don't have the insight or the know-how of how to do these practices that will lead to happiness? Okay? So sometimes a matter of just forgetfulness. These 8 practices, I forget about practicing them. So what will happen, according to the model Thai offered, that if we stop creating happiness, watering happiness, what will happen is we will have, suffering. Yeah, suffering. Suffering will come back. And why has suffering come back? Because there's an interbeing nature between suffering and the practices we do, is that we have what is called wrong practices. The wrong practices of, we have a wrong view. We don't want to get into the duality of right and wrong, but just for the sake of describing, these are unskillful practices. See, we don't want to say right and wrong, but skillful ways of being and unskillful ways, depending on the results. Yeah, but the wrong practices, what do you think they are? Wrong view. And traditionally this view is the belief in a separate self, the belief in eternalism or annihilation. In terms of birth and death, there are many wrong views. And the Buddha said all views are wrong views, so that's pretty good. Wrong thinking, wrong speech, etc. Wrong view, wrong views. Separate self. We can believe in separate self, okay, there's no separate self, but we see in society separate groups, yes? Oh yeah, we practice interbeing, but this group doesn't allow the other group to join them. That's not inclusiveness. Okay, separate groups, that's a wrong view. But anyway, so there's a lot to think about. The Buddha gave some wonderful teachings, and we've been listening to the teachings about no birth and no death. It's a very deep topic, a very deep subject. And I realized that we have to live in the world, in the historical dimension of birth and death. And I would like to give an example that I experienced. And it was in terms of, I lost my passport. Yeah. And I had to have it replaced because we were on tour with Thai and I needed a passport to return to France. And so I went to the consulate and they said, okay, but show me your birth certificate. You need a birth certificate in order to get a passport. But I didn't have a birth certificate. I didn't have a driver's license. Sometimes they accept a utility bill if you prove that you're paying electricity or something like that, or a bank account. Well, I had none of these documents necessary for a birth certificate. And I had to prove I was born. And if I were to go there and say, well, sir, I have never been born and I will never die. If I were to say that, he would say, no passport. If you weren't born, you can't have a passport. So they said, bring your mother. My mother was kind enough to come. And she was the proof that I was born. You have to prove you are born. And we are learning and believing there's no birth. I mean, what do we do with that? So, of course, we live in two dimensions. There's the practical, historical dimension, and we accept. And there's the deeper level of the nature of reality. And for me, nature teaches me about no birth. There is a continuation always. In the Touching of the Earth text, Thai has written, when the plum blossom falls, it doesn't mean the end of the plum tree. There's always a continuation. And the wonderful example that Thai has drawn on the board, a cloud never dies. There is only transformation. And the cloud becomes rain, and the rain will go into the earth and be a source of water for our tea. And then the ocean and the sunlight bring up the vapor. And when the vapor meets the cold air, becomes a cloud. You see? The lotus ponds here, they change, they transform. But every summer we see the flowers come back. The same with the plums. The autumn leaves are falling now. So the tree may say, oh, my leaves have gone away. I'll never see them again. Mama tree says, oh, my little leaves have died. But that's not true. The leaves come back from her, from the tree. So nature, for me, has been the teacher of how I see that there is no death. There is continuation. And we look to see the best qualities of our ancestors in us, our mother, our father, our grandparents, their talents they've transmitted to us. We have wonderful monastic brothers and sisters who are real musicians, beautiful singers. So it's the continuation of these beautiful qualities that for me is the no-death nature of life. Yeah. And so it's very wonderful to discover and look for examples. So the teachings are not just on the level of your intellect, right? They're not words or concepts, but it's something you have seen and discovered. And then it becomes real for you. Yeah, real for you. So I want to recount the story that we heard in Thai's Dharma talk on Wednesday on the young king, Ajatasattu, who became the king with the most ignoble reasons. He killed his father, the king, yeah. And he was hungry for power, for riches, for land, we don't know. But the result of his action, wrong action, was that he developed a very severe mental illness afterwards, with the remorse, with the recognition of what he had done, and despair. And Dr. Jivaka had brought in the best healers, the best doctors at that time in ancient India to try to heal the king. He was not capable of being a just and honest king. Yeah. So they brought in everyone. No one could help him. So then then Dr. Jivaka thought, well, the only person who can help this young king is the Buddha. And he proposed this to the young king, and the king was afraid. He said, no, I can't go to the Buddha, because my father, the king Bimbisara, and the Buddha were close friends. And his father, the king, supported the Buddha even before he was the Buddha. He was the Prince Siddhartha. And he was the king Bimbisara recognized in the Buddha his capacity, his potential, his deep insight and practice, his peace, his love, all these beautiful qualities he recognized in the Buddha. And after the Buddha's enlightenment, he continued to offer this support. So King Jatasattu, who had killed his father, was afraid to go to the Buddha. He was afraid the Buddha would hate him and be angry and be revengeful in some sense, because Jatasattu only had his own mind to imagine the consequences, right? He was using his own mind to anticipate how the Buddha would act. But in fact, Jivaka said, no, the Buddha will not respond in that way. So finally, the King Jatasattu agreed, and he went with the Jivaka, and they arrived at night. And at that time, staying with the Buddha were 1,000 monastics, 1,000 monks, and they were sitting in meditation. And the silence was amazing. It was so powerful that it scared Jatasattu. He was scared by the energy of mindfulness. He had never experienced something. And he thought, is it a plot? Are they going to harm me? He was so scared. But in fact, no, not at all. And he was reassured that that would not happen. So the Buddha came out, and they had time together. And Ajatasattu was so curious about all these young monks being there. Probably for a moment he forgot to ask the Buddha, can you cure my mental illness or something like that. No, he instead asked the Buddha the questions, why? Why are all these young people here? What is their life? What is their lifestyle? And then the Buddha gave some teachings on the benefits of the lifestyle of the young monks, and the contemplative life, we might say, in comparison to the engaged social action of Buddhist practice now. So the Buddha explained the benefits of monastic practice, and we know we had an ordination ceremony 1 month ago. So this is for our young monastics who were ordained 1 month ago, and it's not limited to monastics, though. It's to all of us who undertake a lifestyle of mindfulness, of practice, and practicing and living by the precepts and the mindful manners. and living a life of blameless conduct. So the Buddha gave the young king the benefits of having chosen and committed to such a lifestyle. And he gave the example. The first example was very interesting. He said, now there are slaves in ancient India, and the slaves are not treated kindly. The master can scold, can beat, can order the slaves around. They are not free. And he said, when a young man is a slave and chooses to become ordained, he is no longer under the harmful control of the master. He is free. He will not be spoken to with harsh words or blamed or directed to work hours on end. You become a free person when you ordain. And we have now in society, the modern world, the fair trade movements, the labor unions that have started to protect laborers, to protect people who are working, to assure they have good conditions, their families have education, health care. And even within the monasteries in France, the practice centers, they were asked to create a safeguarding policy for their practice center to assure the safety and protection not only of the monastics here, but all of the guest monastics, the retreatants, anyone who comes, especially the children also, and the teenagers. So we have such a policy that assures the freedom from suffering. So basically all of the teachings the Buddha gave to the young king who was severely misled by his advisors, certainly his elderly advisors perhaps, and that eventually led to the split of the Sangha with Devadatta bringing 500 of the Buddha's monastic disciples to his side, but later on they went back to the Buddha. But to be misled in such a way is a great suffering. Then the Buddha went on to describe the freedom when you keep your precepts, you are free from worry because no one will accuse you of any wrongdoing. You won't be put in jail or anything. And the simple lifestyle of a practitioner is that you have 3 robes and a bowl. Well, honestly, now it's grown a little bit. We have a little bit more than 3 robes and a bowl. But 2,600 years ago in India, when it was so hot, that was enough. That was enough. But now we need a little bit more, or we have more. Yeah. And so the teachings continued with some wonderful guidelines for all of us, even now. And the teachings are found in the sutras. And I have to look at the page. Why don't we have another sound of the bell to establish this habit energy? We are creating a positive habit energy of returning to ourselves, relaxing and breathing. Here we always have the sound of the bell to remind us. And outside you can have other bells or the red stoplight, many other things to remind us. So we'll hear sound of the bell and we'll relax into the present moment with mindful breathing. So if you'd like to read more about what I've just been discussing in Thai's book, Old Path, White Clouds, it's chapter 76 called Fruits of the Practice. And the story about Ajatasattu and the Buddha is in that chapter. You can read about it. And the teachings that the Buddha gave to the king are found in a sutra in the Digna Nikaya, number 2, Digha Nikaya, called the Samana Phala Sutra, the fruits of the practice for a monastic. I will write it on the board if you'd like to know actually the name of the sutra in the Pali Canon. So these are from the long discourses, the collection of the Buddha's teachings in the long discourses. So we see that the king Ajatasattu made many mistakes. He had a wrong view, and certainly he did not practice filial piety at all. He probably had jealousy or resentment toward his father, or I don't know what really, but he suffered a lot from his actions, and he didn't practice the precepts. But at the end, he asked to be the Buddha's student and disciple. So that was a very happy moment. The teachings went deep into the king. You might say he did beginning anew with himself, and then wanted to continue his life in a more wholesome way. He didn't live honestly, and he may not have had many friends because his father was loved by many people. But because of his ambition and his craving for power, he decided to fulfill those desires in an unwholesome way. He certainly wasn't humble, I imagine. I can't imagine his being humble or polite to his father. I can't imagine such a person, but people are like that, you know. We are human. So I think what we want to offer now, we will end the verbal teaching right now as the sisters from New Hamlet will come up and prepare to offer this wonderful sutra called the Discourse on Happiness. And it's the Mahamangala Sutta from the Sutta Nipata. And actually we heard it when the monastics came up to chant. We heard it in French. And now this sutra will be chanted in English. So I'll write on the board where you can read the sutra, and it's how to live a life of happiness and create happiness for others. So we want to wish you a very happy, holy month, a happy and holy continuation way into March, peaceful experience of this month of preparation, these months of spiritual celebrations, and you know, the Sangha is there for us. We are here for you, and you also are here for us. We want to really let you know our deep appreciation of all of you, our lay friends. You are the Sangha. We are a fourfold, multifold Sangha now. With interbeing, we continue to nourish and heal on the path of practice that Thai has offered in all of his teachings to us. And so we wish you a very happy, joyful, peaceful, healing month of December and on into the next year. And so as the sisters are preparing, I will write the name of the sutra. They will chant, and actually the music has been composed by Sister Huduk from Hong Kong, our guitarist, and yes, please, we hope you will enjoy the teachings in this sutra.
Associate with foolish ones, to live with wise people, honoring those worth honoring. This is the greatest happiness, to live in a good environment, to have planted good seeds, to realize you're on the right path. This is the greatest happiness, to have a chance to learn and grow, to be skillful in your profession, practicing the precepts. This is the greatest happiness, to be able to support your parents, to cherish your own family, have a vocation that brings you joy. This is the greatest happiness. Live honestly, be generous, supporting relatives and friends, living a life of blameless conduct. This is the greatest happiness, humble, polite in manner, to be grateful with a simple life, not missing the chance to learn the Dharma. This is the greatest happiness, to be patient and be open to change, to be close to monastics, to be able to share the Dharma. This is the greatest happiness. Live diligently and attentively to perceive the noble truths and to realize